We indeed have the Pascal Siakam trade that honestly we have been anticipating for probably this entire NBA season. He goes to the Indiana Pacers, joins forces with Tyrese Halliburton to score a ton of points. In return, the Pacers are sending Bruce Brown Jr., Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks to the Toronto Raptors. New Orleans also jumps in this deal. They're sending Kyra Lewis to the Raptors. Indy gets a second-round pick as a result of the dance there. Rob, first thoughts here. What do you think about the deal?
I think my first thought is just that Indy finally pulled the trigger on a deal we've been expecting, not just this season, as you said, Justin, but really for multiple years now, in terms of them making a deal that would put them over the top, that would round out their roster. When I went to spend some time with the Pacers in preseason to write that Halliburton story, I've written a lot of those preseason stories before. This was the first time a team was just blatantly open about the fact that they didn't have enough yet, that they weren't ready yet, that they were young, that they had a lot of room to grow, but there was such a clear need at the 4, and no one was shying away from that. And so to see them fulfill it with the player who has always made a ton of sense for them and will now make them, 15 to 20% spicier, that's a win for all of us, I think.
Yeah, this is one of those deals where, Rob loves the trade machine, as you guys all know. But this Siakam deal...
I cannot abide this turn to my personal brand, Woz. I look in the mirror and I hate what I've become.
But this has been a trade machine match made in heaven for at least like a year and a half now. Where people have been shoehorning Siakam to Indy, like this is the match made in heaven. This is the destination that made the most sense when you talk about team and where they are in their building right now, what they're trying to build towards, the kind of guy who fits with their youth, their style, who's complementary to the most important guy on the team, which is Halliburton. This was just such the obvious. Everybody has made this deal. And so that it actually came to fruition is really cool to see. And obviously, we can't wait to see how it looks on the court because Indiana was already in my personal top 5 league pass rankings before this deal, and they're only going to shoot up after it because I think they're going to continue to play an exciting brand of ball. And I want people to understand that Pascal Siakam is a legitimate all-star player, a legitimate winner, man. This guy does all of the small things, and he does stuff that a lot of guys can't do. He gets to the basket with reckless abandon. He will get to the free throw line. He has positional versatility on defense and offense. He shoots it. He runs in transition. Like he rebounds it. Like this guy, he can actually spark the break off of a rebound. Like this guy does so many things. He's going to be a menace in the dribble handoff game. Like he is such a high quality player. And I get it. He's in Toronto. They don't get the most attention as far as media attention and stuff like that. I guess their GM does anyway. But they don't get that much attention. So like a lot of people aren't in tune with what Siakam brings to the table. But this guy is going to be an immediate upgrade. This is not going to be a neutral add to the situation. The Pacers just got much better today. And their fans, the players in that organization, the coaches should all be excited for it.
Yeah, credit the Pacers for not waiting on this because we had seen leading up to this some dance happening about Siakam not wanting to sign with other teams because he's a free agent over the offseason. He had some leverage in these negotiations. The Kings, first and foremost, were reported to be suitors, but he reportedly didn't want to re-sign there. The fit, though, for the Pacers just seems so perfect because he counterbalances everything that they need while still fitting into what they do so well. He can run, but he's going to give you the defensive oomph and the physicality I think they've lacked this season, Rob. And so you got to give it to the Pacers we could talk about what they paid for it, but it seems like they're not going to wait because they recognize how ready to run Halliburton is right now. Well, when he gets back from injury, but when he's healthy, they are ready to be kind of interesting in this Eastern Conference race.
Well, that's worth noting off the top. We're going to have to wait a minute to see Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam together at the very least. Halliburton's still out with that hamstring strain. He's due to be reevaluated in a week. we'll see. Soft tissue injuries can linger for sure. It could be longer than that. Regardless, having Pascal Siakam makes that proposition easier. He's going to be thrown into the deep end in terms of being on a new team with new terminology, new teammates, new system. But a player who's that talented, a guy who can legitimately, as you said, do a bit of everything. That's something Indiana hasn't had. And it's something that's going to make them a lot more solvent until Tyrese gets back. And it's going to make them a lot more exciting when he finally does. Because if you ran down the list of what the Pacers needed at the 4, in terms of size, a quality defender, a secondary creator, a guy who can play with pace, a guy who's versatile enough to fit what they do offensively, that list of forwards is much, much smaller than you think. And Pascal Siakam is usually at the very top of it in terms of the guys who fit all those criteria and could be potentially gettable and are immensely talented. So just really a perfect fit for Indiana's style, really a perfect fit for their culture. And as far as veteran guys go, a player who hasn't yet turned 30, has a lot of NBA experience and NBA miles, but is in the right bracket age-wise for what they want to do and be over these next couple seasons.
Well, we should talk about that, Waz, because that's one of, if there is like a concerned trolley aspect to this, is that Siakam is getting older in age, and he's also played a lot of hard minutes under Nick Nurse, who doesn't really pay much attention to people's knees. I assume, considering that Siakam reportedly, Woj has a report that he is eager to work out a deal with the Pacers, so he'll probably have 5 years tacked on to that. That's 30 to 35, basically.
He's got a deal in hand with the Pacers.
Do you have any concerns that this young, fun, running team is going to add someone who, not on the back end of his career now, but certainly isn't going to get better from here?
No, I have no concerns because I listen to Kenny Rogers. I'm sorry. You're not the Lakers. You're not the Heat. You're not some marquee franchise that Luka Doncic or, some supernova talent is going to force his way to your team. In order for you to acquire talent, you have to do it in ways that aren't always perfect, crystal clear, easy to sell, easy to ingest deals. Sometimes you got to take a risk. You got to put your chips in the table, Justin. And so, no, I don't have a concern. This is the game. You have to be in it to win it. If you want to be on the sideline and say, I want to just hang out until the perfect move comes around and the perfect player at the perfect age, at the perfect price, at the perfect time, like you can do that, but you're not going to be in the game in the meantime. And so to
sounds
me,
like my dating life.
We got to get you on Riot, brother. But in the meantime, I think they're doing the right thing for the type of franchise that they have. Like this guy, again, he is a legitimate NBA all-star caliber player at a premium position. You feel me? Like center, let's face it. The Clippers are playing Daniel Tice at center, big minutes, and Mason Plumlee off the streets. They got
Daniel Tice?
Oh, is it Tice? Oh, sorry.
Waz, come on. That's
my bad.
That's a world champion you're talking about right there.
Okay, my fault. But what I'm saying is that this is a position that's hard to fill. The kind of guy that gets you rebounds and can still shoot it and can guard on the perimeter and can do some post work and is a great help defender. Like these guys don't grow on trees, man. And so, yes, I understand the idea. 5 years, you're paying him into his mid-30s. Don't matter. This guy is high quality. And to get him in your building is a big deal. And so, yeah, I'm a big fan of this.
The Pacers also wouldn't be here, and this trade wouldn't be happening if they hadn't put themselves in a position to be an attractive destination. I think it's telling that there's reporting connecting Siakam to other teams.
Yeah.
He said, no thanks. That's not a long-term fit for me. But Indiana, with what they've proven, with what Tyrese Halliburton has proven, with what this offense has proven, that's something that other players can look at and say, I want to be a part of it. And Pascal Siakam literally just did. One thing I want to push back on, Justin, is the idea that because of his age, Siakam can't get better. He's such a great player development success story. I don't want to count that out. I don't want to rule out the fact that he can get better.
Yep.
Yes, there are certain athletic metrics from which it's only going to be downhill once you get kind of into your 30s, but he's a guy who has always worked hard, who has always found ways to add to his game. And I feel like he's always kind of refined the way he reads it. It's not just adding to your skill set, but adding to your understanding of what you do.
Yes, and he is one of my favorite players in the league for that exact reasons. Probably the greatest player development success story in recent history. If we want to really put a fine point on it, him or Kawhi, there's guys who came from nothing. Siakam, who was a hustle big defender that they were trying on LeBron in some of those LeBronto series, to now becoming an all-star. And let's be honest, the all-star qualifications often require lots of points and numbers, and he's definitely going to be getting a lot of those playing next to Tyrese Haliburton in that system. And I got to say, on in terms of price paid here, there really isn't much for there. Now, we discussed how Siakam is going to be a free agent, so there was some leverage there. You really are kind of paying just to get ahead of the open market, and so these deals typically don't give you a lot. But Bruce Brown on a contract where he has a very large team option for next year. So he's a functionally expiring contract. Jordan Nwora, probably just there to make a math work, or a young guy to be interested in.
Well, as far as Bruce Brown's contract, not only is it functionally expiring if you want it to be, but it's functionally not if you don't want it to be. Because that's the difference. Buddy Hield could have been involved in this trade instead, a true expiring contract. But the Raptors getting Bruce Brown, where now if they need to make another trade with Bruce Brown's contract, they could also do that.
Right. If you want to bring him to a rodeo, he'll definitely do that with you next year.
He's going to bring you to the rodeo.
So there are 3 first-round picks going back to Toronto in this deal. The reporting, as we're recording this, coming in that it's a 2024 first from Indiana. We expect that to be in the 20s, probably, maybe getting lower with Siakam in there and the Pacers getting better. Another first, which is has to change hands 4 times, has to go through 4 different teams before it ultimately gets to the Raptors. So who knows where this pick is going to land there. And then a 2026 from the Raptors. We don't know the projection on that one, but we assume if everybody's healthy and producing like we expect, that's probably going to be in the same range there. Interesting assets but a different approach than the Raptors took with the Knicks, getting birds in the hand, getting young players who they can kind of move forward with. You're going the picks route. Do you like this better or worse in terms of just like the asset play for Toronto?
I don't know that the Pacers necessarily had the young guys to facilitate something like the Knicks. I guess you could say Mathurin.
Yeah, Mathurin or Jarris Walker. Guys, yeah, those would be the only guys.
But it's not the same because Mathurin has way more cost control left than IQ does, right? And, obviously RJ has been paid already. And so I think the young guys in the Pacers bucket are just they're just at different stages than what the Knicks could offer. So I'm not surprised necessarily there. And, the picks are what they are. Like, the guy was going to be a free agent and there was nothing they could do about that. So it's nice that unlike Kyle, unlike Fred VanVleet, they actually faced the music and got something in return for guys who were out the door.
There are also some diminishing returns too when you do a bunch of different versions of the same trade, whether it's getting all picks or all young players who need minutes and opportunities. You kind of have to split the difference a little bit, and Toronto's going to have to do that, right? If you make a trade for young players, you're doing it at the expense of the young players you already have, especially when everything the Raptors are doing right now is to highlight and facilitate the growth of Scotty Barnes and the kind of team that can be built around him. Did Indiana have the kind of young talent that could contribute to that? I don't think Ben Mathurin or Jarris Walker, for their respective talents, really necessarily fit in that style.
Yeah, Walker would have been the interesting one just because I don't see a clear path for him to playing time on this team. He's getting in there. He's getting in there now and then, but like the Pacers also retain Obi Toppin in this deal. Maybe they just don't resign him over the offseason and believe he's headed toward restricted free agency this summer. He's an interesting one, if only because he was such a high pick. I think he was 8th overall. So that would have been interesting, but you're right. There's only so many young guys you can cram into the Raptors system, and there's only so many young guys you can cram around Scotty Barnes because he needs certain type of players.
Don't tell the Pistons that. You can never have enough young guys.
It's true, but I think like the Knicks package, there is sort of a prove it element to this from Masai's point of view, where it's like, well, you targeted quickly. Let's see him play as a starter around Scotty Barnes in this new wonderful role that you've carved out for him. In the same way, these picks that are probably going to end up in the 20s, that is kind of how they built the title team originally, with Siakam, for instance, getting picked 27th overall, finding Fred VanVleet out of nothing. So let's see Masai be able to kind of work some of the same magic that got them there to the first place. It is kind of a disappointing return, we should mention, considering the wild fantasies we had for OG Anunoby, going for 90 first round picks and couldn't trade Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant and all this other stuff. But they're clearly resetting around Scotty. And so there's a path forward here. Like, there's a clear vision to this team that there wasn't before. And for that, I think it's an addition by subtraction.
And we've seen from some recent deals, I think in particular the James Harden trade to and from the Clippers, that sometimes it's not always about the return. It's about that clarity of vision. It's about what it does for your team.
It's about the journey.
It is, in this case, about the journey. I don't want to zoom out too far on Toronto, though, because in terms of what they're actually getting back right now, Bruce Brown is a nice player for them and a cutter who makes sense playing off of someone like Scotty Barnes. Jordan Nwora was not of use to the Pacers, but to a team that categorically cannot shoot, much more interesting. And I think Jordan Nwora could actually get some rotation minutes for Toronto. So there's something here in the meantime. Obviously, we're going to have conversations about the picks and what those will, like, what the ultimate benefit of those will be. But in the interim, I think there's a lot to watch in Toronto. I think there's a lot of interesting guys who are in bigger roles than they've ever been, who are going to have to do more than they've ever done before. I just can't say, when we do take that zoomed out perspective, the end result of the Siakam and Anunoby era of Raptors history went out with a bang.